Hello, peace seekers. This is Saniqua White popping in to give you a piece of my mind that will hopefully give you some peace of mind. Now, we've been talking about 13 reasons why your mind may be playing tricks on you. And this is based off of the clientele that I work with. I've discovered about 13 reasons why my clients' minds plays tricks on them. And we're on number 11, which is that your coping strategies are failing you. Your mind is playing tricks on you because your coping strategies are failing you. Now, I've come up with about 3 reasons why your coping strategies might be failing you, and that is that you're not using them. Number 1. Number 2 is they're negative coping strategies. Number 3 is you don't have any. So let's talk a little bit more about those 3 reasons. So, if your coping strategies are failing you because you're not using them, then I think that's pretty obvious. If you're not using them at all, then of course they're going to fail you. You need to set yourself up for success. If your coping strategies are going to work for you, you're going to need to use them. So that means you have to know what your coping strategies are, and we're going to get a little bit deeper into that probably in this video, and I might do a second video as well to take it a little bit farther. But you need to be using your coping strategies in order for them to work for you. Okay, number 2, if they're negative coping strategies. And what I mean by negative are things that would hurt you or hurt someone else. They're typically only temporary fixes if they're negative coping strategies. And so let's talk about that. That would be drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, eating. Those are just to name a few, but those are the primary ones that my clients would be using on a regular basis if they're negative coping strategies and they're failing you. Now, those things are going to fail you, like I said, because they're temporary. Sex is only going to be temporary. You get that hit of endorphins and all the excitement and all of that, and then it's gone. So you need to do it again. Now, next thing you know, you have a sex addiction. Okay, same thing with drugs and alcohol. You need more and more on a more regular basis for it to work. It's only temporary. It's negative, so it's eventually going to fail you. And typically, after it's done, it's failed. You only have that negative coping strategy for a little bit of time, and then it's going to fail you. And the third thing is if you don't have any. If you don't have any coping strategies, then of course they're going to fail you because you don't have any. Now, most of us, or most people who would say they don't have any coping strategies, they do have coping mechanisms. And why I'm calling them mechanisms are because they're typically things you don't necessarily think about. It's almost like the fight or flight response to trauma or fear. It's something that your brain or your body just does. You're basically in that moment, you're just hanging on by a thread if you don't have any coping strategies, but your coping mechanisms are kicking in. You're just hanging on by a string. You're white knuckling it, so to speak, and some people might say. You're just waiting till that moment is over. You're just trying your best to hold on until it passes. And eventually parts of it will pass. You may not be in the actual situation anymore, so the situation itself will pass. Maybe you physically removed yourself from the event or the situation that was happening, so it passed in that sense. But if you don't have any coping mechanisms or coping strategies, that is, then everything that you walked out of that trauma or that event or that situation with is going to follow you mentally and emotionally, and it's going to cause damage over time. So don't think that just because you got out of a situation, you don't need to learn how to cope with that situation. You definitely do, because now you have to heal from it. Now you're spending time, you're growing up, you're maturing maybe physically, but not emotionally or mentally. That's why you see grown people walking around, and when something happens to them, their response looks more like a teenager or a child. They're throwing tantrums, they're cussing folks out, they're doing all kinds of things because they never learned how to cope. Their coping strategies didn't grow with them, or they just never took the time to gain some. So again, number 11 in our 13 reasons why your mind may be playing tricks on you is because your coping strategies are failing you. And your coping strategies are failing you for one of 3 reasons. You're not using them, they're negative, or you don't have any. And so what we're going to talk about next is the differences between positive coping strategies, negative coping strategies, and non-existent coping strategies. So stay tuned. But if you like what you're hearing, remember to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Put a comment in and say whether you are using your coping strategies or you're not, whether you feel like they might be negative or you do have some positive, or if you just don't have any coping strategies at all. And in my next video, or maybe 1 or 2, I'm going to give you some ideas of some positive coping strategies that you can use. So again, give this video a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, comment, and I'll be back with you soon. Until then, be proactive about your mental health, be well, and God bless.